This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
And welcome out to Target Field. The Bison kicking off the 2019 season playing football in a baseball stadium. We welcome you to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Ryan Gellner, Brian Shawn, Lee Timmerman, and Kyle Emanuel, former Bison, former San Diego/LA Charger, joining the pregame show this year. And as always, Beth Poole, I am Alex Egan. We are so excited to bring you another season of Bison football here from the KVLY KFYR Bison Football Network. And what better way to kick it off than playing at this wonderful stadium in downtown Minneapolis.
We've gotten to do a lot of cool things following the Bison, playing for the Bison. This is a really cool experience. How about that? Look at that beautiful scene of Target Field. What do you make of this?
I think it's incredible, and I've played in a baseball stadium, but it wasn't quite as nice as this one. So I think, especially for a lot of guys being from Minnesota, being from this area, and having a chance to play in this stadium, probably growing up Twins fans, it's awesome, and it's going to be a great experience, especially for a young NDSU team.
It's really kind of hard, I think, to explain if you're not here, the atmosphere of being here. Imagine if the Bison were playing Butler in the Fargo Dome right now. It would be honestly a little bit hard to get jacked up for this meeting, but the fact that we're here, it's really easy. And yesterday, walking around downtown, not being in Fargo on a game day or a game weekend, felt like Frisco. There was so much green and gold. There was welcome Bison
example.
Fans.
Yeah.
And it was everywhere downtown, and people were everywhere.
Fargo North now. We talk about Frisco
South,
North.
but Frisco North.
Yeah, there you go.
I think the biggest thing, too, is because of the success that's happened with the ticket sales, all the corporate sponsorships that have come together, this is an FBS guarantee game. This is a moneymaker for the university. For as tough as it's been to get a lot of those Power 5 schools to schedule North Dakota State, this is a nice alternative down here because they're still going to pocket close to $800,000 out of this whole experience. Plus, I think this is something they're going to look at doing now every 4 or 5 years in this area, and I think that's a good idea. It might be here, it might be at US Bank Stadium,
yes, please.
It might be somewhere else. So I think that's where this is a good, first test. And
I don't mean to be greedy, but US Bank Stadium would be pretty cool.
I don't know if they're filling that one up, though. I don't
Challenge
know.
accepted.
I think it would be fun to see, though.
This is one of the premier Major League Baseball stadiums, if not the best, the grandest Major League Baseball stadium. And for North Dakota State to get to play a game in quite possibly the best Major League park in all of baseball and play it on the football field, it's pretty cool.
Just another thing that Bison football has been able to check. Well, you guys, they had a very, very busy offseason for NDSU football this year. I need to hear it. Just kind of at will, what do you think was kind of the biggest thing that happened when you look at the entire laundry list of activity?
Well, the easy one is they got a new head coach and a bunch of new coaches.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it, too, keeping it within the Bison family, a guy that, like Chris Kleiman 5 years ago, had never been a head coach before, had been a lifetime assistant for 25 years, and waiting for this opportunity, how much it meant to him and his family to get this opportunity, how badly he wanted this job when it came up. And you feel good for a guy that got his opportunity to be a head coach here, and he gets to coach his first game here, where he's done so well recruiting over the last 5 years at North Dakota State. He's responsible for a lot of the Twin Cities talent that's playing in this game.
We just saw a graphic of the coordinators, and I think that's a pretty good representative of what Matt has coming in. Kind of 50-50. Kleiman left, but not everybody left. When Chris took over, he had to build a whole new staff. Entz doesn't have to build a whole new staff. There's a lot of familiarity, I think, in the coaching staff that stayed, and that certainly helps the transition a lot.
And I think someone else that we got to mention, and I wanted to mention, was Grant Olson. And you see him right here on the graphic coming in at linebacker. One of the smartest guys, and everyone that's played with him will tell you he's the smartest guy they probably ever played with. He was the most prepared. I came in as a middle linebacker with him, and it was intimidating because he knew the playbook before he even stepped on campus. So I think I'm really excited for Grant personally, but I think I'll be even more excited to just see what he's done with this group. It's a young group, and see what the linebackers can do this year.
Well, and then not only new coaches, but they also had to name a new starting quarterback, something they haven't had to do for a while. They end up naming redshirt freshman Trey Lance after a quarterback battle that led up until last week.
And really, it was a quarterback battle starting back in spring when Zeb Nolan transferred in and got onto campus and was able to be a part of this team in spring ball. And so we saw that it was going to be Trey or Zeb or Noah Sanders, who's been in the program for 3 years and understands what Tyler Roll wants to do on offense. So I think the most telling thing about Trey Lance, and when Matt Entz named him the starting quarterback, he said, I had to put my defensive coordinator hat back on.
That's my favorite part.
And which quarterback would give me the most problems as a D coordinator preparing for the Bison? And that's why they ultimately settled on Trey Lance.
Yeah, easily the most telling line of that whole press conference, I think, on to why you're going to see Trey Lance today.
And to put it into perspective, in all history of North Dakota State University football, they've never had a freshman quarterback that has started the season for them until today.
And to go back to 2004, quarterbacks making their debut for NDSU in their first game with NDSU starting, only one quarterback has lost in their first start with NDSU. That was Jose Moeller back in 2009. Sorry, Jose. But we had to throw it out there. But that's how impressive. And it just goes to show you that it's not just the quarterback position. It is entire team around him, because when Easton made his first start, he turned around and handed the ball off 30, 40 times in that game at Indiana State. So.
And there's a lot to be said and a lot still yet to be seen about Trey Lance in this. But, you know, you hear it talked about so much on these sort of shows, how important, how crucial it is to have a multi-threat quarterback. As a defensive guy, I mean, it really is a game changer.
It definitely is, especially when you're young. I don't think you can't really catch up quite as fast mentally, but when you can do multiple things in a defensive quarter, I mean, like you said, Matt Entz said it's harder. There's just so much more you have to prepare for. And I think, you know, Trey Lance, to me, as a guy who wasn't around last year but got to see him play in one of those 4 games that he appeared in or whatever, he passed the eye test 100%. He passed the eye test. He pops out on the screen, just his ability, his size, his ability to run and throw. I'm excited to see him play.
Yeah, no question about what he can bring physically. It's how the mental aspect of the game goes, and then all the checks and all the things that a quarterback has to do with his eyes almost without thinking, because if you have to think about it, it's too late.
And it's going to be probably a lot of thinking today, because he is a Minnesota kid. He is playing in the target field. There's a lot that's going on for this young kid. Even identifying where the play clocks are in this stadium, that's different. So it's something that he's going to have to hang around and look. They're here. They're somewhere, but they're here. They do have clocks in the stadium. I know they're not used to clocks here in this stadium, but that's something that's going to happen for Trey Lance today in order to be successful. Well, there's 6 of us here, but there is one more member of our crew, and that is Mike Morkin, who caught up with some Bison fans earlier today, and he brings us this tailgate report.
All right, thank you, everybody. I am so excited. What started in Fargo, North Dakota, outside the Fargo Dome, we took it all the way to Frisco, Texas, and now here we are in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tailgate Trivia 2019-2020, and thanks to Big Herbs, they're sponsoring it this year, and they're helping us with gift cards. We've got 2 candidates, 2 contestants right now, and my first is named
Karen.
Karen, do you realize we have never gotten anyone wrong? So as we started in Minnesota, okay, are you ready? Counting the playoffs, how many games did the Bison football team play on the road last year? Was it 5 or was it 6? And you can help. You can get help from the crowd.
5.
5? Is she correct? Is she correct? They're not really fired up about your answer, but they should be, because you are correct. It was 5. Hey, there you go. There's your $50 gift card to Big Herbs. Thank you so much. That was easy enough, wasn't it, Michael?
Oh, yes.
Okay, here we go. Our second question. Which NDSU football player scored first and last in the championship game in Frisco? Was it Cam Peterson or Easton Stick?
Cam Peterson.
Cam Peterson. Cam Peterson? It is Cam Peterson. Cam, of course, kicked the field goal in the first quarter, and then he kicked an extra point after Easton scored. There you go. Hey, are we having a good time here outside of Target Field? And the fun's just beginning. We'll be back later in the show with more tailgate trivia. Back to you, folks.
Still plenty more pregame show to come. We are just underway here from Target Field. Please stick around as the Farmers Union Insurance Bison pregame show rolls on. Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison football pregame show. We are out at Target Field, and they did a lot of work to turn this baseball stadium into a football stadium for the day for North Dakota State. And it was a long process for the grounds crew here. They had to shave off the mound, and it took about 4 days. You're seeing a time lapse that the Minnesota Twins did, and it was not an easy process for these guys to turn this into a football field.
Thankfully, they've done this before. They were able to do it with the Johnnies and the Tommies, but to get ready for this one. But what an impressive sight to see.
Now, you'll notice on the field, they got rid of the pitcher's mound. They put turf over that, but they left the infield. And I was curious about Kyle Emanuel when he played in the NFL. He played in the AFC West with the Chargers, and in the AFC West, the Oakland Raiders, who play in a baseball stadium. And I thought, well, let's talk to Kyle about playing in a baseball stadium. And you never had to play on the dirt.
I never did. And it was one of those things every single year that I'd almost not be worried about, but you're like, oh, when do we play Oakland? And where's it at? Because I've talked to people who have played on the dirt, and it's not fun to fall. And you watch film a lot with it, and it's just different. But I think it'll be interesting to see if it does play a factor at all today.
Now, did you ever play on the old turf at the Fargo Dome?
I sure did. My redshirt year and then my first year playing. Yeah,
okay,
so 2 years.
So you think that would be worse than...
I don't know if it'd be worse. I think either one, if you fall and you slide and you don't roll, it's going to hurt, especially if it's not covered up. But it's just one of those things you learn to deal with.
Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier, the difference in grasses from football fields to baseball fields. I know that Coach Entz wanted to get the guys out here a little bit early so that they could try a couple of different types of shoes out. And I know you guys deal with that in Frisco as well.
Yeah, Frisco was one of those fields that always looked really nice, but didn't always hold up the nice. Obviously, everyone remembers, 2013 when it really didn't hold up at all. But I think there is, again, I'm not a grass expert, but I don't think it holds up as well. It's just not meant for that. These kinds of guys.
The degree wasn't in turf. That's good to know.
No,
well, you know what? Our own Ryan Gellner had a chance to meet up with somebody who does know a little bit about turf with the grounds crew. We'll toss it over to Ryan Gellner for more on this transition here at Target Field.
Yeah, guys, thank you. Larry DeVito is the head groundskeeper at the Minnesota Twins here at Target Field, and you were the mad scientist behind all of this, changing it from a baseball field to a football field. When they first told you they were going to try to play football on this field, what were your thoughts?
Time of year and timing for getting it back to baseball. I think getting it to footballs, in my view, is easier than getting it back to baseball, just because of the expectations of our players at the major league level. So this week will be probably a bigger challenge for me.
When I asked you what the biggest challenge was, you said it was probably the pitcher's mound. You had to take us through that process. Shave it down?
Well, we got to bring in a mini excavator and just kind of hack at it. And the clay, because it's so compacted, it comes up in small chunks. Then we got to level it underneath and add a little material and put in real thick sod so it's safe for these guys to play today.
Now, if I'm Jose Barrios or if I'm one of the Twins pitchers, my eyeballs go up at that and say, wait a second, you're messing with the mound. You got to rebuild that then.
Right, we can rebuild it. We'll take 3 days to do it, but we think we'll just make it even better. So should be fine.
The Twins are back here in 6 days, and I asked you, how much are you going to have to repair? And we don't know quite yet what you're going to have to repair.
No, I think there'd be some isolated spots certainly, but it's a good time of year. The grass is healthy, it's pretty firm, so we'll see how it goes.
People are talking about the infield. Outsiders are talking about the infield, how hard that must be, how tough it must be to get tackled on that. From a groundskeeper point, that doesn't really concern you, I would assume.
Well, I mean, we'll give it some more light water before the game. It's not like playing on your community field for a softball game or something. It's got a little bit of give to it, but it needs to be firm enough for their footing too.
Final question for you, Larry. How many hours do you think from the time you started this thing to the time you will end and put this back to baseball shape, how many hours do you think you put on this field?
My staff and I, it's been the last 4 have been 11, 12-hour days. Tomorrow about 8 hours, and then back to more 10-hour days through Friday. So we'll see how it goes.
And it's not just a baseball field you got to get ready for. You got to get ready for a pennant chase as well. So it's important baseball, which is good in your book.
That's a great thing for us.
Larry, we really appreciate it. The field looks great. We're really excited to play on it today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. Yeah, obviously playing football on a baseball field is a little bit different.
Very important baseball. That's putting it lightly.
Yeah, in the Open we talked about some of the stuff that happened in the offseason. Well, there was something else that happened as well, and it was a pretty special trip.
Incredibly special. I got to go to the White House with the Bison football team. Just such an outstanding experience. We recapped it a little bit for those of you that maybe didn't get to catch all of the coverage or weren't able to
go.
be there.
That was me,
Yeah. So take a look, a little recap from Washington, D.C. with the Bison football team.
North Dakota State has been on plenty of national stages. None, though, may have been bigger than this past March when the Bison football team was invited to the White House to meet with President Donald Trump.
It's a 45.
Oh, wow.
For President Trump.
45th president. Thank you.
He was so gracious with his time and, got an opportunity to kind of tour the White House a little bit, saw the Oval Office and stuff like that. That's unbelievable.
One of our teammates said it sounded like it was like a movie set. I mean, it truly was. Just walking through there and seeing how things it was really incredible.
You see it on TV, you see stuff like that in books and stuff like that. So just being able to be there in real life, it was kind of surreal.
NDSU was being recognized for their dominance on the field after winning their 7th FCS National Championship in 8 seasons. The trip was more than just a visit with the Commander-in-Chief. For some on the team, this was their first trip to our nation's capital and their first glimpse at some of the historic sites. The team was honored by North Dakota Senator John Hoeven, who was paramount in getting the Bison to Washington, D.C.
It's not just the fact that the Bison are a great team, 7 championships in 8 years, representing NDSU so well. They represent North Dakota, and they're great young men, great role models. It's a joy to have them here. And, I mean, they're winning over everybody they meet. President, but you name it, everybody's very impressed with them.
Just seeing people in D.C. and all over the country that know what North Dakota are, what the Bison are, and who we are, you know what I mean? So it's just huge coming out here and representing for North Dakota.
It was really cool to just get an opportunity to talk with him a little bit, and he had a lot of really nice things to say about our team and our program, and so it was a lot of fun.
Today represents what the Bison family was, getting to meet the President of the United States, getting all the tours, and great food and lunch with the representatives and whatnot. Incredible opportunity for us.
I think just getting a chance to shake the president's hand, that's, not very many people get to do that, get to see the Oval Office. There's just so much history, and, it was pretty surreal, honestly.
We're going to win games. They're going to meet their best friends at NDSU.
Yeah, very surreal for all those players. But we said that John Hoeven was instrumental in getting them out there. But we think it might have been Kyle Emanuel who was instrumental in getting the Bison out to D.C.
Well, he certainly thinks so.
Well, I absolutely do think so because, so all this was going on in the media. Everyone was giving President Trump a hard time because he's feeding Clemson fast food. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, North Dakota State has done a lot of good things nationally lately. They've won a couple of football games. Why don't I just send out a tweet? Why not? It'll be fun. So this is, I think you can see the date on there.
January 15th.
And I think, a week later, I actually had people tweet at me saying, oh, I sent your tweet to Senator Hoeven. And then it ends up happening.
The power of that blue check mark.
I didn't really want to invite. It would have been great. I just wanted a little shout out for just for getting the ball rolling.
Well, let this moment stand. Kyle Emanuel, you get your credit.
And maybe the tweet had nothing to do, but I have a hard time believing that.
In all honesty, though, what an amazing opportunity for this football team, this football program, to get that recognition, because it is a big deal.
Absolutely is a big deal. You're talking about, the national champions or the Super Bowl winners, everyone. It's a big deal to be able to go to the White House, the capital of this country.
And about time that the FCS national champions got their representation.
Just had to win 7 out of 8 to do it.
No big deal.
No.
All right, absolutely. Well, Kyle, we're sorry we couldn't get you to D.C., but we got you to Minneapolis here, and we've got much more from Minneapolis here as the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show continues on. Stay with us. Welcome back to Target Field, the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. It is, of course, North Dakota State opening up the season against Butler, and it is the first game of the season, and so that gives us a chance to look ahead throughout the entire season, and we do that by looking at one single player that we think will have a good year for the Bison this year. And Kyle, I know you have somebody that you've had your eye on.
Yeah, I do, and obviously it's a position I know pretty well at defensive end, but my impact player is going to be Derek Tuska, and it's pretty simple. It was I think it was January, February, and I get a text from Coach Ensign. He's like, hey, Derek Tuska wants to reach out, and he wants to just talk to you a little bit about what you did going from your junior to senior year. And so I just talked to him a little bit and gave him some advice what I tried to do, transitioning from a junior into the senior captain. And then I got to see him this year right after camp, and I feel like he had a tremendous offseason. He looks good physically. I know how important the pass rush can be, especially this game. But when you get into the dome and the fans get loud, and you can really impact the game. So I'm looking for a big year from the senior Derek Tuska.
Well, and he had a little bit. I remember Jamar Cain used to call him one of his pound pups.
Yeah.
When he was talking about a young Derek Tuska and saw the promise so early, and just the importance of that pass rush and that education he got at such a young age. You know better than anyone the impact that Jamar Cain had on your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Cain really affected me and taught me some things technique-wise that I had never even thought about. So for Derek to be able to be with him, especially young, and then he had his brother obviously there mentoring him, I think just his work ethic and how much he cares about this program, that's really going to shine through, not only on the field, but just throughout the locker room.
Yeah, and now he's got Buddha Williams, who's absolutely taking his education to another level. Just that ability to learn from different people. I've really been able to hear from you NDSU football players about how valuable that really is. Change is hard, but you learn a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone, coaches are the exact same as players. Players have their kind of niche and what they're good at, and coaches have different things that they like to do as well. And so everyone has a little bit different technique and what they like to teach. And if you can take away just something that can help you a little bit. I know Buddha's going to have some different things that Coach Cain did, and that can really turn you into a really overall well-rounded player.
Yeah, well, let's go over to the guys who will be on the call today and get their thoughts on an impact player that they think will have a good year for the Bison this season.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alex. And LT, when you look at impact players, there's a lot you can choose from just because there's so many new faces on both sides of the ball. And I think for mine, I always look at the safety position, which is so critical in the Tampa 2 defense that North Dakota State has played. Look over the last 4 years. Robbie Grimsley has been in that position. He's been so good. And stepping in is Michael Tutsi, a kid that knows the game, came from a high level of football in Indianapolis, played at Warren Central, which is not only a state power, but a national power. His father is a cornerbacks coach at Marion College, so he understands the systems. The one thing David Braun, who has taken over as the safeties coach this year, is sometimes he's a little too aggressive in the running game, wants to get into that run fit a little bit too fast, and they still need to teach him some patience with that. But he had 2 interceptions last year as a redshirt freshman, and I think he's going to break out here in 2019.
Well, you guys, and when I mean you guys, everybody on the pregame show always gives me a hard time about talking about offensive linemen, and we're going to pick an impact player. I'm picking, shockingly, an offensive lineman, but a critical position, that center position. Everyone knows that Easton Stick would needed a replacement. That is going to be Trey Lance. Well, Tanner Volson was the center of that offensive line and commands so many things of the calls. Well, that's Carson Schuning is the guy that's going to take over that position. So it is a critical spot, and I think the second most important new guy in the lineup, especially offensively for the Bison, is Carson Schuning from that center position. Some of the things he does well, coaches tell me he does a really good job at getting to the second level in that run game, picking the right linebacker to get there and take care of. And the other thing, too, that I think T. Roll told us is probably the most important thing for Schuning. Your job, among anything else, is get the other 4 guys all heading in the same direction. Once you do that, you will be doing your job and doing it well.
Meanwhile, for Butler, they have to replace a lot, too, on the offensive and defensive lines. They do have a really good defensive end. That was the co-defensive freshman of the year in Mickey Kane, number 40. Very undersized, but pretty explosive guy. Had 5 of the 12 sacks for Butler last season. And I know for you like some of the other guys they have as well.
Well, yeah, a guy to watch on the offensive side, number 7. He's about this tall, and I probably outweigh him by about 50 pounds, but you're going to see him all over the place. His last name is Schneider. They get him into the slot, try to find some space for number 7, Schneider.
All right, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, guys. Up next here from Target Field, we are going to show you the hard-nosed coach that makes sure the team is ready to play on Saturdays, but he's also there for players when they're in need off the field. We'll bring you that story next here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show live from Target Field as North Dakota State gets set to open the season against Butler. Now, you know, the success of NDSU, the football team, is well known, and the list of reasons why is long.
Yeah, and in recent years, their strength has really been their strength and their ability to outlast their opponents. Mike Morgan has a story with a special piece on why.
They're tough, they're hard-nosed, and physical.
Stick on the keeper, trying to lead his way in, and
Their stamina has been unmatched. And what you see here is developed
foam rolls, same as usual. Get the body ready to go.
And crafted.
Let's go. Pick it up. Right.
By a strength and conditioning staff led by Jim Kramer.
Left. Let's go. Get into it. Get into it.
Coach Kramer runs a tight ship and lets players know exactly what he expects.
Back straight. Third set. Let's go.
You know, young people, accountability, responsibility, teaching them a work ethic, teaching them, to work together.
His overseeing of the strength training, conditioning, agility, and nutrition programs aims to get each and every player ready for the demands of a long football season.
Stretch those hammies. Loosen them up. Warm them up.
But for the coach who's lovingly referred to by some as the Bulldog, there's another side.
He reached out instantly when I was going through that.
Former Bison running back Chase Morlock, who is now heading up a training facility in Moorhead, says Coach Kramer was there for him during tough times off the field, including the death of Chase's father.
He's got the biggest heart in the world. I know you guys all see the tough outer shell, and that's what it has to be. And a lot of those young guys see that too. But as you get older, he truly does care, and he loves every single one of his players.
Other players, past and present, echo what Chase Morlock has to say, adding that once he gets to know you, Coach Kramer is there for you.
Once you earn his respect and you get in the program for a while, there's definitely a caring side to him because he wants everybody to succeed when they get in the program.
Yeah, he's always there for you. It doesn't matter if it's the weekend or weekday. He's going to always be there if you just call him up, and he just loves this program to the fullest.
Kaiser, bend those knees a bit more. Get down there.
Jim Kramer says his approach to coaching is to ready an athlete for the long haul, to prepare for life in a Bison uniform and life after football.
People once asked me, what rewards do you get, or what's gratifying to you? Is it that increase in body weight you see with some young athletes developing and growing, and that? Yeah, no, it's not that. It's seeing the emotions, seeing the player down the road, seeing the player down the road from a freshman to a senior, how they grow and develop and mature into a leader, mature into fine young men.
Emmanuel, you were there 2010, 2014, and what was Coach Kramer like?
Well, and Mike, it's kind of hard to put into words really what this guy means to a program, and like you heard Chase refer to, everyone sees the heart outer shell, and especially when you're a player and you're a young guy, that's all you see, and you're kind of, why is he so mean to me? Why is he so hard to me? Why is he calling me back when I don't finish through the line? And you realize that he's one of the main reasons and one of the main people who establishes the culture at North Dakota State, and everyone always talks about the culture as being a big part of why NDSU has had so much success, and to me, he's the one who establishes it, and then you have the seniors that come in and kind of keep it going with the young guys, but he cares so much, and it's unbelievable, especially me now being a former player, and I go back and we give each other a hard time back and forth, but he just cares so much about his players.
I remember seeing him this afternoon. He came up to me and I thought, and then he finally cracked a smile just before he shook my hand and thanked me for the story. He said his mom got a chance to see it, and he appreciated that, but for a moment there, I thought, oh no, am I in trouble with Coach Kramer?
Yeah, he can be a little intimidating, but then it's funny because you put him on camera and you probably see he gets a little nervous, but he's right at home in that weight room, and he's right at home around this program and helping everyone develop and grow, not only as football players but as men.
And he'll be the first to tell you that he's not the only coach that plays that role in many kids' lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the head coach, everyone in this program cares, and it truly is a family. Everyone talks about that, but it really is a family.
And it's the kind of thing that doesn't necessarily show up on the scoreboard.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much. Stick around. We've got more of the pregame show coming up live from Target Field here in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Thank you so much. We had so much success the first time with this. I've got a couple of more contestants. Thanks again to Big Irv for supplying the gift cards for us. That's what we're playing for. My two contestants are, we'll save the lady for last this time, and we're going to begin with you, because I think this is the most difficult question I've ever asked. Are you nervous now?
I am nervous.
Okay, here we go. What's your first name?
Kurt.
Kurt, here we go. Here's your question. Which school was founded first, Butler or NDSU? And you can ask the crowd here for help.
NDSU.
NDSU. Okay. Do you think that's right? No. Why do you think it's Butler?
Yes.
Do you know this guy?
No.
You might want to ask him what he thinks.
What do you think?
Butler.
Butler is the right
That's
answer.
your final answer?
That's my final.
Butler is correct. Butler is correct. Butler was founded in 1855, NDSU in 1890. Way to go. There's your gift card. You might want to take him with. All right. Yes, okay, here we go. What's your first name?
Diane.
Diane. That was a little nerve-wracking, wasn't it? And he got help, though. You can get help. Here we go. While NDSU has 10 football players listed as being in the NFL, how many Butler Bulldogs are there? 0 or 3? You can ask the crowd.
0.
Same guy helping out again. Your final answer?
0.
0 is correct. Yes! I got to ask you just simply because you're helping out. What's your name?
Zach.
Zach is the guy helping out. There you go, Diane. Thank you two for playing. How about a cheer for the Bison as we take it back in?
All right, thank you very much, Mike. Some happy winners out there in the tailgate lot as we get going here. Now, the Bison are playing the Butler Bulldogs. It's primarily a basketball school, but they do have a football team as well here playing in the Pioneer Football League. I got to be kind of quiet saying that. They're sitting right over there.
Yeah, we're on their
I think they
sideline.
can still hurt you, Alex.
They should probably be quiet
I
saying
bet
that.
these football players could still hurt you.
Yeah, but let's learn a little bit more about the Butler Bulldogs. Ryan Gellner catches up with their head coach. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you guys. Jeff Voris, the head coach at Butler, joins us field side in one of the side dugouts. It's a little unusual to be in a baseball dugout, but at the same time, Coach, unusual to be playing on a baseball field, but you just told me conditions out there, you really like them.
Yeah, we had a chance to walk through yesterday. I mean, the field's pristine. You kind of forget how big an infield is when you haven't played baseball in a while, but it is the Twins organization done an outstanding job setting this thing up. They were very welcoming yesterday. We got to walk around a little bit and see a little bit of the stadium. We're excited to get going today.
Your quarterback, Sam Brown, is a guy that can move around a little bit, can throw it a little bit. Not a lot of experience. Tell us about him.
Yeah, that's the thing, is we got a lot of guys that are going to play college football for the first time or playing new roles for the first time. But Sam's done a great job. He has all the intangible things you look for in a quarterback. The guys rally around him, and I think the thing that impressed the staff the most was day in and day out from January on, he kept raising the bar and kept meeting that bar, and he's really done a good job of understanding his job, how he fits with the 11 other guys, and like all young guys, it's what are the 11 guys across the ball doing, and how are we going to take advantage of that and distribute the ball the right way, and he keeps getting better. Now, it's a first game for a lot of people, and it's a tough one for your first one, but he's excited, I know that.
On the other side, number 40, Mickey Kane is a guy that jumps off the film. He is quick and explosive from the edge.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Defensively, we're very similar on offense. So we've got a bunch of guys that are going to play for the first time. But at all three levels of the defense, we have returning guys that are not only good football players, but great leaders and showing direction with work ethic and kind of leading, as far as our culture and everything. So Mickey's one of those guys, along with Mason Brunner, our captain, and Mike Linebacker, and in the secondary, Luke Sennett, our other captain on defense. We got some guys that have played, and got some guys that are going to get their first opportunities that we think are really good players.
Many people back in the Dakotas saw a social media clip of you rallying the troops and talking about this experience and the opportunity to do something. Is that really your message to the guys, that they've got a big opportunity in front of them?
Well, I think our message to the guys, we've got to take care of what we control, and it was about our preparation, and even here leading up to the kickoff, it's mentally what you're doing to put yourself in the right spot and give yourself the best chance to fit with 10 other guys. That's really our message. You don't get a chance like this very often, if ever, in a 4 or 5 year career to play the defending national champs and the number one team in the country. And it's we know it's a huge bar, especially in an opener where so many things are unknown. But we want our guys to focus on what they can control and getting themselves ready to go so that they can put on their best performance.
We appreciate the time, Coach. Thank you for doing this, and good luck as you get after them today.
Thank you very much.
Guys, back to you.
Thanks so much, guys. Well, you know what? We like to do something fun every year on this Bison football pregame show to give you a little bit of character, a little bit of personality from the football players, see them off the field. This year, we did superlatives. We're starting off with a couple of the new coaches.
Oh, here for sure. What are you talking about? Live at a party. Live at a party. You don't ever talk.
He's not invited to the party.
Oh, invited.
What year are we talking?
We ain't talking to the 30s. We're talking right now, Coach Pauly. Yeah, I got it. Coach Pauly, he's about love. No. When have I ever FaceTime you?
Guys, always on FaceTime.
Yeah,
He's always on FaceTime.
I'm on FaceTime, but did I ever FaceTime you? It's probably Coach Pauly. I don't know if I have any talents.
Axe throwing or something he likes to do, so. Axe. Oh, right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to you. I can't. Oh, for sure. Come on, you play. Oh, yeah.
Go Dogs.
Oh, dude. Oh, DBs are way faster. We gotta run backwards and then cover, y'all.
Let's keep going.
I don't know.
Well, I guess you're in the defensive staff.
It ain't fair. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Night owl?
Yeah.
Oh, no, by 9.
I sleep by 10. I guess it's gotta be me.
The kids,
I let you guys
kids go
know.
sleep.
Welcome back to Target Field. The Farmers Union Insurance Bison football pregame show continues on, just about 45 minutes away from kick of North Dakota State and Butler. We will catch up with Ryan Gellner in our Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Injury Reports. First game of the season for me, too.
Yeah, we're all taking reps.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Ryan, go ahead.
And we have caught up with Dr. Bruce Pyatt. And Bruce, early season, but not just early season, playing on a baseball field, which means there's dirt, the grass is a little bit different. From a medical standpoint, what concerns do you guys have? What are you looking at during this game?
Well, obviously, it's going to take some adjustment for the athletes to get used to it for competition's sake, but I'm more worried about it from an injury standpoint. Transitioning from a turf to the dirt surface itself, I worry there's going to be some loss of grip, some loss of function for them where they're going to be giving out on them. If that happens, we're going to be more prone, I think, to things like groin strains, muscle pulls, those type of things. That's what we worry about with it. But to be honest with you, being down here on the surface, it's amazing to me how firm the surface is. And so the concern I didn't really realize going into it till getting down here is that it's going to be an issue with them landing on it. And so I worry a little bit about shoulders and AC injuries and those type of things. Just it's so firm, there's no give to the surface for them.
Go back to your first point. Most players brought 2, 3, even 4 pairs of shoes, different styles of cleats, no cleats, turf shoes. How much of an input do you guys have on that?
Well, really, that's up to the more the equipment managers and those type of people that are managing that with them, and they give the athletes their own individual choices with it. So as long as they're safe from an injury standpoint, I don't want them coming out here with really highly gripping type devices, but we'll give them within a range 2 or 3 options that they can choose from. They'll look at it. If you've watched, they've been out here and going in and out, trying different shoe wear to see what fits best for them. It was interesting. Yesterday, I talked with Marcus Williams about it a little bit. You know, Marcus played on the surface in Oakland with this, and like Marcus said, it's a nightmare for a defensive back when you're on the dirt surface trying to react to another athlete and stuff. So personally, I don't mind that part of it because you're not unlikely to get a season-ending type injury with it, more of a nuisance type mechanism for that. But like I say, my biggest concern is going to be landing on the surface.
Well, we hope that your concerns don't come to fruition. Everybody that lands gets up, goes back to the huddle, and if they do that, you've had a successful day, and North Dakota State has as well. Bruce, thank you for your time as always. We'll do it again next week.
Sounds good. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Back to you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. Here are a couple of names on the Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Injury Report. Seth Wilson tore his ACL back in spring ball. He is out for the season. And Ben Ellefson, tight end for the Bison, a pretty big contributor for this Bison offense, is suffering from a little bit of an ankle issue, and it does not look like he will be playing today. Also, Spencer Wagee for the Bison defensively will not be available. He has a foot issue that he is dealing with and will not be playing for the Bison, at least for the first week and maybe for the first couple of weeks. for the Bison and Spencer?
Well, you know what, it's a really big weekend for this Bison football team and these guys currently playing in college football, but it's a big weekend in the NFL as well. Teams making the cuts for their 53-man roster. No official word yet on Easton Stick's future, but some good news it would look like.
Yeah, we found out just before we started on air here that the Chargers are going to release Cardell Jones, who is Easton's biggest competition. One of my former teammates, which is kind of weird, but Cardell I thought he had probably one of his best preseasons, so that speaks volumes to Easton. I think in my opinion, they might have made this decision up before this even last game. I think they can work with Easton a lot and develop him, even if they didn't necessarily see what they wanted.
Well, we were saying that maybe even a little bit of that decision comes down to the future that Easton has, the contract situation that shakes out here.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm pretty sure Cardell is in a contract year, so if they want to keep him and develop, obviously he's not going to play over Phillip Rivers and probably not over Tyrod Taylor. So you're looking at a developmental situation for someone who's going into a contract year. That's probably not something they want to do.
And this is such a part of the NFL world that you don't really think about. You think about fan favoritism, and you think about loyalty. None of that really matters when it comes to the front office.
No, it really doesn't, and I've been pretty vocal about. That's what I missed a lot when I went to the NFL. Is that there's no loyalty. You talk about the Charger family or whatever family, and it's like, well, families don't just get rid of people, so it's hard to kind of create that family culture environment of fighting for your brotherhood that we did here at NDSU.
Yeah, no word yet on Tanner Volson either. We did get word though, Bruce Anderson cut in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and hopefully Bruce will land on a practice squad somewhere. That's always the weird part about this is these guys get cut from these teams, but then they're back out on the free agency market, and any team can come in and scoop them up, put them on a practice squad, or put them on an active roster.
The Buccaneers gave him a favor. They let him get something on tape in the last preseason game for the Buccaneers. He had a bit of a day for them in their last preseason game.
That's one of the biggest things is a young guy just trying to prove it. Can I get film out there? Because a lot of times it's hard to get on the field, and he was able to get out there. He did some really nice things. Bruce is another one of those guys. I didn't play with Bruce, but he's another one of those guys. The first time I saw him, he's talked about earlier about Trey Lance. He passed the eye test. He looks like an NFL running back to me, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked up.
Well, and so important to get that NFL film, even if it's preseason stuff, because otherwise they're looking at FCS stuff. And as much as they wipe the slate clean, it's still FCS film. So he was able to show that he can run and make some plays against NFL caliber guys.
Exactly. They want to see you do it, and they want to see you do it against that type of talent. There's always going to be that stigma.
And you always have to prove yourself. Even if you were an FBS guy, you have to prove yourself every day in the NFL.
Every single day. And it's so cutthroat. That's what I always told people about practice in the NFL. I thought it was easier, except it was more intense in a way because there's no scout team necessarily. There's a practice squad, but those guys are trying to make a team. They're trying to impress people just as much as
Yeah, they're trying to take your job, not help you prepare for
exactly.
for the next
we kind of want to help prepare you, but we also want to take your job.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the big one on everybody's mind today, though, is obviously Darius Shepard. No official word. There is one reporter saying that he believes he'll be cut. I think everybody would agree the Packers would have to be crazy to cut him just with the stuff that he's put on tape for the Packers for the preseason.
Yeah, he's had an unbelievable preseason, and it's one of those things where, like, even if they do cut him for whatever reason, there could be a million different reasons, but even if they do, Shep's had such a good preseason, and he's such a hard worker in the way he goes about his business. He'll get picked up somewhere, and his NFL career is far from over.
Well, and we can talk about all of the things that go into the preseason and everything that they've done. What's it like, though? I think this is one of the benefits of having you here. What's this day like as an NFL guy, that locker room like, as you say goodbye to guys you make friends with?
It's an extremely awkward, weird, just a strange day. It's kind of like, it's almost like a funeral type of sense when you walk into the locker room and you see these guys packing up their stuff. It's like, what do you say to them? It's like, you feel
and you just went through training camp together, which is grueling.
Exactly, and it's just like, you wish them the best, but it's just a weird situation. Even there was times where, like, I had a good idea would be on the team, but it's still like in the back of, maybe it could be you today. One of my best friends on the team got cut randomly, like after he already had made the team. They just walk into the locker room and kind of nab him out and say, you got to come up to the office, and then he was cut. It's different. It really is, and it's hard as a player.
As far as we know, there is one player that we know will be on an opening day roster who's a former Bison. That's old number 11 Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
Just signed a healthy contract. No official word on that either, but we're pretty sure
a report on that
Carson Wentz is going to be on the opening day roster for the Eagles. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll take a look at this game as North Dakota State gets set to prepare for Butler, the first game of 2019 here, the defending FCS national champions. Stay with us here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
Welcome back inside Target Field, where today North Dakota State will take on Butler. Brian Sean will call today's game. Lee Timmerman will provide the analysis. And guys, from the outside looking in, there's a lot to get ready for, including a new season. But on paper, North Dakota State and Butler, it's a little bit of an overmatch. Butler has some disadvantages, you could say, from the top to the bottom.
Well, there's so many disadvantages when you're a non-scholarship program. And the one thing people may not realize about Butler, the program only has 3 full-time coaches. The rest of the guys are part-time. There's a lot of turnover. Now, the 3 guys that have been there have all been there 15 years. But that's just the situation where things are just not funded the same way. It's a non-scholarship program. Virtually everybody redshirts. They have to look far and low to try to find talent for this program because it's tough to get in there. They have to be financially stable. Butler is not cheap. And you have to have a certain academic standard to get in there as well. So those are the things that they have to deal with here. That all being said, they've done a nice job fielding a competitive team, and they play very hard when you talk to the Bison coaches every single play.
I was talking with an individual in Indianapolis, and how do you fit in the pecking order behind basketball, which obviously runs the ship? He basically said, football-wise, we try to convince people in Indy that you don't have to go to West Lafayette and you don't have to go to Bloomington to watch quality college football. So that's what they're hoping for.
That is what they're hoping for. Let's get right into our keys to the game, our 3 keys of what might be the difference in this football game, and maybe some trends and stats, and it's brought to you by Dakota Magic. The first one is what NDSU has done against this league, the Pioneer League. They're 3-0 since they've gone Division I. You see the scores. 2004 in that first game at the Fargo Dome, 52-0 over Valpo. And then in the playoffs, Brian, they got San Diego twice in 2 pretty lopsided games. San Diego is the top of this league. Butler is not.
You know, I have to put my head on my forehead a little bit and take a breath, realizing that Valparaiso game was the first ever Division I game for North Dakota State, and it was 15 years ago, and I remember being there for it. You start realizing, man, I've been hanging around that long, but it's a different level of football. That being said, San Diego has won a couple of games in the FCS playoffs, and they are the standard. And you talk to teams around the Pioneer League, they say their talent level is the standard, but everybody else is pretty even across the board. It goes year to year. That being said, it is a different level of football, Ryan, flat out. A non-scholarship, it's a different level of athlete.
Our second key to the game is the Bison, as weird as it may sound. They can't overlook the Bulldogs, and that's maybe they can't look ahead because North Dakota State is young as well. They're young Cavs. They return just 7 of 22 starters. This game might be just as much about North Dakota State, Lee, as it is about Butler.
More, actually, about the Bison than about Butler. But, you know, you still have to throw the fact out that this is the Butler team that did beat Youngstown last year at the beginning of the year. So, yeah, but you're right. It is more about young guys and young players like Trey Lance right there. The Bison returning 7 of their 22 starters. This is a Bison team that is extraordinarily talented. This team has a lot of talent on it. We and you guys at home as fans don't know much of that about those kids because they haven't played much throughout the course of the year. We'll see how it works. I thought one of the things that Tyler Roll talked when he talked about us or talked with us, I said earlier this year, is this like, you know, how long is it going to take for this young talent to come together? That was the main thing because it is certainly there. It is deep, and this is a team that can do a lot of things this year.
Tyler Roll fits into our next key, and that is simply game management. This might be the biggest test for NDSU. We talked about the young kids between the lines, but outside the lines, Brian, a new head coach, a first-time offensive coordinator, a first-time defensive coordinator. It's not just easy as snapping your fingers.
No, it isn't. And I asked Matt Entz about that on Monday at his press conference. You know, how long does it take to get everybody used to being on headsets together as a coaching staff? Because every guy communicates differently. Every certain coaching staff likes a certain kind of cadence. And so that's going to take some time. And he said Wednesday was our 4th day on headsets, us communicating that way in practice. So we can get used to the game day experience and try to replicate it a little bit. I think that takes time.
Just to add to that a little bit with the conversation I had with Coach Hedberg, he says, I really like this offensive staff because most of the guys have done it at a certain level before. Yes, this is the first time for T-Roll to call plays, but Randy Hedberg's been a head coach. He's been an OC. Coach Larson's been a head coach. He's been an OC. Coach Pauly has been an offensive coordinator. Coach Blazek was in the Big Ten, so he said he really likes that. Even though they haven't done it yet, the communication is there.
It'll be something to watch in today's football game. We're about 30 minutes for kickoff, and we've got a lot more to come. This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison pregame show. We're back right after this. Back inside Target Field, North Dakota State and Butler as we get ready for football now. About 25 minutes away from showtime. NDSU has gone to their locker room for their final preparations. Butler still on the field just over my shoulder. They're warming up, ready to go. They'll go down to the locker room momentarily. It is now time for Herdline News, and think about this. Today's anticipated crowd of upwards of 35,000 people will be the biggest contingent of North Dakota State University fans at one time at one place. Will be really cool. Crowd-wise, the Bison have played in front of 70,000 people before. They did that in Iowa, but a majority of those are wearing gold and black. 62 and 63,000 were in Minnesota in 2006 and then again in 2007, but many of those were chanting Sky U Ma. So those are the top 3 games in all-time crowds. Today's contingent will likely be the 9th or the 10th all-time biggest crowd to watch the Thundering Herd play in one time. Back to my original comment, though. Today we'll put more fans in one facility at the same time than ever before, the biggest contingent of Bison fans. NDSU Athletic Director Matt Larson told me that today really is a historic day. Not only does the football team get to play here at Target Field, but they get to do it in front of one of the biggest NDSU crowds ever. He says of all the big things the school has gone through, all the big games, all the championships, that today truly marks history for North Dakota State. To the game itself in our Herdline News, junior linebacker Jabril Cox is getting some national recognition already. Cox is on the 25-man preseason Buck Buchanan Award list for the FCS. He's also one of 5 preseason All-Americans for the Herd. Cox joins senior offensive lineman Zach Johnson as first-team selections. Speaking of Zach Johnson, he and 5 others have been selected as captains in 2019 by a vote of team members. Johnson will start at right guard today. He's joined by safety James Hendricks, corner Marquise Bridges, running back Ty Brooks, tight end Ben Ellefson, and defensive end Derek Tuska. As kickoff gets closer, I had a chance to visit with Matt Entz, the Bison head coach, and talk about some of his young players mixed with some of his veteran starters. Matt, when you look on paper, NDSU obviously has some inexperienced positions, a young team. Let's start there. Your thoughts on going out there with not really a veteran group, but a younger squad?
Well, I think the one thing that I've identified and tried to talk about is our kids are hungry. And regardless of their experience, they were brought to NDSU because they were really good football players at the high school level, and it's their time. And it's kind of a thing that we continually talk about with our kids is we don't flinch at graduation, and we're not going to this year as well. Excited about the kids. They're going to have some opportunities to get considerable reps today, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they execute in front of a huge crowd.
So many changes in the offseason, but really it's same old for NDSU. You want to run the football first, establish that, then see what else you've got from there.
No question. We want to make sure that we're able to run the football and take what the defense is going to give us on the offensive side of the football. And I think starting a young quarterback, we want to make sure that he's efficient early, gain a little bit of confidence, and just let his nerves and get him settled into how the game's going to operate.
What have you told Trey before a game like this? I'm sure it's been just that, is somehow you've got to settle down and just play the game.
No, and this morning, grabbed him right after chapel this morning and said, this entire team has your back. And so regardless of what happens, you understand Code Green, special teams, all of them are in huge support of Trey Lance and his ability to lead, his ability to operate the offense, but also his ability to make plays. We've seen it, and our kids are excited for him and excited to get out here and get going today.
You coming from the defensive side, I assume you want the defense to set the tone.
Of course, but we put a ton of time into our special teams this year, and so I anticipate having a lot of energy out there with our kids, and we want to play great defense, and that's a given here at NDSU. But I think this place is special because all three phases lean on one another at different times during the course of the game, so we can have the best product on Saturday.
The practices are over, all the lead up is over, you finally get to hit somebody else. What's your message to the kids as you leave the locker room?
I talked to them this morning, and because of our youthfulness and some of our new faces out there, I challenged them with one thing, and that was to be so great today that they can't ignore you. And I want everyone to know who the Bison are and that we're still the same old group, and we're looking to play at a high level of football.
On a personal level, Matt, you've waited your entire life for this. You've wanted to be a head coach. You'll walk up these stairs today as the head coach of NDSU leading their football team. On a personal level, pretty special.
Unbelievably special for me, and to have my boys here with me today is a dream come true. So now it's time we got to play a football game, and I've been waiting for that for 9 months, and it's finally here. So excited to have the culmination and get this season started, because I think it could be a special one.
It is pretty cool for Matt Entz to lead the Bison up the tunnel for the first time here at Target Field. And I'll tell you what, it is filling in with Bison fans. The green and the gold is everywhere. We head up to the booth, bring you more action in just a little bit.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Welcome back to Target Field in Minneapolis. Inside the broadcast booth, Brian Shawn, Kyle Emanuel, and Lee Timmerman with you as we are under 20 minutes to go until kickoff here in the 2019 opener between North Dakota State and Butler. And guys, first of all, as this stadium starts to fill in, now that we're upstairs, we get a pretty good vantage of it, pretty good view of the atmosphere. What do you think now that the fans are almost all in?
We had an interesting conversation on the field with Dave St. Peter, and I actually listened back to the 2016 interview when Dave, the president of the Minnesota Twins from Bismarck, by the way, in case you don't know who Dave is, how this ball all got rolling. And he said there's only one team in this region that can fill this place, and that team is NDSU. And I know they're talking a lot about the future, but we don't have to worry about that. We worry about today, and you will see gold, you will see green. Butler requested about 200 tickets. That's it. They are definitely the visiting team.
Guys, there's a buzz down there. There really is, and you can feel it when you're on the field. I know me as a former player, I'm getting goosebumps down there. I'm asking if I can if I can suit up again. If they can find a couple of years of eligibility left in there, but there definitely is a buzz. It's awesome. You start to hear the bands playing in the background now. It is a college football atmosphere and just an incredible venue.
Well, let's take a look at our Bobcat heavy lifting reports, and the tight end room has been marvelous over the last decade. They have not only had one guy, two guys, but even three guys in that specific room that have done such a good job of providing depth. And not only can they catch the ball, but they're so good on the line of scrimmage in the run game as well. And this guy out of Hawley, Minnesota, has been a special one.
Yeah, and Brian, this was going to be my Bobcat heavy lifting impact player of the game. Unfortunately, Ben's not going to be able to play today. But the reason I picked him, it can still apply to that whole room. And we were talking, this is a young group, and actually no tight end or fullback has actually caught a pass for NDSU. But for me, it's always going to start with the running game. So the tight ends, fullbacks, what can they do with their run blocking ability? Play action passes. Can they give Trey Lance time? Trey is obviously a young quarterback, and I think they start him off with some easy throws, and that's one of the other reasons I think tight ends in the flat, they can be an impact there. And then red zone targets. Tight ends are easy, they're the biggest guys out there, at least going out downfield and trying to make things happen. I think Ben Ellefson had 8 touchdown catches last year. Can someone else step up in that room and make an impact and really be there for a young quarterback.
The way, I know you played defense here, but you certainly went against the NDSU offense and the NDSU offensive philosophy. From your defensive position and how it sits, why do you think the Bison in the room, as they call it, fullbacks and tight ends are one unit? Why is that?
Yeah, I think it just their ability to block and to mesh as one. And the funny thing is, the offensive coordinator, Tyler Roll, that's their coach. And he's a guy who was a smash mouth player when he played, and he knows, I think that's not by accident that Tyler Roll is their coach. They're hard-nosed. They play, they block extreme, they play for one another, and they really embody what it is to be a North Dakota State Bison. And I think that's why they're together, and that's why they're just as much as the Rams, the offensive line, they're a big reason why NDSU has success running the ball.
Other areas that you are specifically watching when you look at position groups, because you can look at a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of new starters across the, with 7 starters back total from last season. So there's a lot of new guys that are getting their feet wet as being the guy. Position groups you guys are looking at right now?
Well, I'll mention it a little bit here, but offensive line for me, it's the heartbeat of a football. Yes, way. Heartbeat of the football team. There is not a single decent football team that has a bad offensive line. They just don't exist. I always call that group the most important part of football that nobody talks about, which is maybe why I talk about that group a little bit more. I know Dylan Rates is the one guy in the same position, but you think about a Cordell Volson. You know, Cordell is so talented that he'd take a guy who's a preseason All-American and an All-American last year, and you move him out of that spot. That's Zach Johnson, and probably the position Zach's going to play on the next level when he gets there beyond the Bison. But it's a team that has a lot of talent, and without that offensive line, those backs do not get those yards, and that quarterback does not get his time to throw.
I would have to tend to agree with Lee, but for me, it's more the trenches. You know, the defensive line, offensive line, every game, I'm assuming they still do it, we get together and you break it down trenches on 3. And there's a reason we talk about the running game. We talk about, NDSU's ability to be successful defensively. It always starts in the trenches. And Lee's exactly right. You don't have a good football team. I don't care what your quarterback's like, your skill players. If you cannot win at the line of scrimmage, and I think especially today, when you would have to think that North Dakota State has an advantage with Butler in the trenches.
One position group that no one has, I don't think, talked a ton about has been the linebacker group. And that, again, you talk about Levi Jordan, Dan Marlette, 2 experienced guys that are gone. Aaron Mercadell coming off an ACL tear. He did get a 6th year of eligibility, so he's only a junior. But Jabril Cox, I'm not even sure if there is as dynamic of a player in the FCS as what that guy is. He is one of the most special athletes you'll find anywhere.
I certainly don't know every defensive player in the FCS throughout the country, but I'm pretty confident in saying there is not one out there that is better than Jabril Cox. He has so much talent. The NFL certainly knows who he is. You can put him anywhere. I made the comment once to Matt Entz. I said it on the air, and then after I said it, I'm like, I wonder if that's true. So the next time we had a conversation with Matt, I'm like, hey, I said on the air, I think Jabril Cox could play corner. And he goes, I think you're right. So he's a linebacker playing multiple positions with the ability to play the nickel spot. And I think if he had to, he could go out and play corner. That player and that talent base doesn't exist in the FCS level, but it does in him right here.
Yeah, I think Jabril kind of reminds me, he's got a little bit more, length to him, but Travis Beck, when I was playing, Travis was a guy we just left on the field. You didn't have to take him off. You didn't run nickel. You just left your base package out there. And Jabril's a guy, I think it'll be interesting to see what Grant Olson, I talked about Grant earlier. Obviously, he's a teammate, friend of mine, but him taking over the linebacker room, can he take Jabril to the next level mentally? I know I've heard some people talking about he knows pretty much every position now at the linebacker spot. Can he take it to physically? He's probably like we talked about. He's as talented as they come. But can he take it to the next level mentally and just play fast? Go out there, have fun, play fast, play for your teammates. And he's going to be a guy I haven't got to see much of, until this year. So I'm excited to watch Jabril and see what he can do out there.
One area that probably gets overlooked a lot, it shouldn't, because the rest of the team has been so strong, has been special teams. A lot of times we take the coverage units for granted. You take the punter for granted. Garrett Wegner is a first-team All-Valley punter. He really broke out, I thought, in his sophomore campaign. There is a new kicker this season. Cam Peterson is gone. The all-time leading scorer in the Missouri Valley Conference, Jake Reinholtz, a 215-pound kicker. You got to like that. The new batteries there as well. New holder, new pieces on that part of it.
Yeah, special teams is one of those things, especially when it comes to kicker punt. You don't really want to. They just have to avoid the kind of catastrophe where something really bad goes happening. And you want to, but if you can just make your kicks as a kicker, punter, do your job in flipping the field, that can really be a weapon. I think a lot of people, like you said, they overlook it. And then these coverage teams, again, if they can just get out there, pin guys deep, and let the NDSU defense go out there and do their thing, I think that's always key. And it's like you said, a lot of people don't talk about it.
Maybe punters are becoming more important. And I say that leading up to this because the FCS now has a Punter of the Year category, which has never existed until this coming year. And the reason I bring it up is because Garrett Wagner is on that watch list as guys and athletes who do that specialty and do it very, very well. You're right. I do love the mentality of football in that you sit there and you go, all right, kicker, punter, don't screw this up.
Right.
And they know that. They know that's their job too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're the guys that you see them when you're doing conditioning, and they're sitting there tossing a football around and they're drinking Gatorade, and they kind of get forgotten a little bit. But they're a key part of the team, and they're just as important as any other aspect.
Okay, the most probably important position right now on the field for both of these teams. You look at Butler, look at North Dakota State. You can look at a lot of teams around the Missouri Valley that have new signal callers. Trey Lance for North Dakota State, getting set to make his first ever career start. Sam Brown on the other side for Butler has thrown 3 career passes, has not completed one, is making his first career start. What do you think is going on in the minds of those two guys right now, recognizing what they've been tasked with, trying to lead these two respective teams?
Yeah, I think when you come to Trey, I think I talked about it the whole team, but if he can just kind of take the stage away, take the moment away, know that he has a great defense, he has the special teams that we talked about, he has people behind him. He doesn't have to go out and be a superhero and do things that over the top and make mistakes. You hear the term game manager, and I know he is much more than a game manager, but in your first start, can you just complete some throws, maybe get a hit or two? He doesn't get hit in practice, and just get into the game, get into that zone that's kind of hard to get into for quarterbacks, and just and do the easy things well, make the throws that are easy and complete those, and get into this game and hopefully get some confidence moving forward. From a
Butler standpoint, when you're talking about quarterback comparisons and the people that I talked with this week, the unknown with Sam Brown is much greater, I think, than the unknown that NDSU has in Trey Lance. One of the things that was told to me is he going to be a 2,000-yard passer this year? Or is he going to be a guy that throws 20 interceptions? We don't know. He has thrown 3 passes his entire college career, and he's 0 for 3. There is so much for Butler to be successful, not only today, but throughout the season, that rides on that kid's shoulders, and nobody knows. The coaches don't know, the coordinator don't know, and I'd be willing to bet that Sam Brown himself doesn't know.
Yeah, and these are young quarterbacks, and if they can, especially defensively, if they can do some things with their eyes a little, you get to sit into a zone coverage in the NFL, when you have a young quarterback you're going against, is he going to stare down a target, or can he do things with his eyes? Can he make these checks? And that'll be interesting to see, I think, from both these guys being young quarterbacks.
And one of the most key things is you see North Dakota State enter the field, and the atmosphere has certainly lightened up. You got a whole lot of people on their feet now in green and gold. Is not beating yourself. In these first games to start the season, we often see teams sometimes play a little sloppy.
Yeah, penalties, false starts, turnovers early, things like that. That's, I think, especially for Coach Entz, that's what he's really going to look at with this NDSU team early on. They're young. It's an exciting crowd. It's an exciting environment. Like I said, can they just do the little things right and put themselves in position to win a ball game?
Matt Entz putting on the headset for the first time as a head coach here at North Dakota State. The Coors Light countdown clock at 5.5 minutes. We will step aside and be back with the final thoughts as we get set for kickoff between North Dakota State and Butler after this.
2 minutes and 10 seconds left on the Coors Light countdown clock as we get set to open the 2019 season. North Dakota State and Butler. Let's get our final thoughts from our crew.
All right, I think my final thoughts going into this game is for each of these players from North Dakota State or Butler, just enjoy the moment. Opportunities like this to play in this type of venue, which is neutral field, so to speak, but it's an opportunity to play in front of a lot of people, and it situation you're not going to get a chance to play in very often.
My final thoughts revolve around the Bison offensive line. Even though they only have one guy in the same position as last year, that's Dylan Radens at left tackle, this is a group that I think is going to be the strength of the team. I'm looking forward to seeing it come together. There's some very, a number of talented players up front that are going to mesh and are going to move people.
Guys, let's face it, on paper, North Dakota State should blow out Butler in this football game. If the Bison want to run it, they should be able to run it. But I want to see NDSU throw it around a little bit. Heck, it is a redshirt freshman quarterback. There's some unproven wide receivers. I want to see NDSU throw the ball. Who's the deep guy? Who's going to catch that long pass? Who's the short guy? Who's the possession receiver? What about the tight ends? I want to see North Dakota State throw this football today because in the upcoming weeks, they have some things to prove. Kyle?
Thanks, Ryan. Well, I think it'll be interesting to see how this young NDSU team reacts to playing in this environment. It's the first game. You have a new coach, new coordinators, and a lot of new things happening. Are they able to play fast and coming out of this game feeling confident, especially getting Trey Lance going and into that UND game, and see if they can leave this game with a good feeling?
Beth, your final thoughts?
I'm excited to see what these coordinators have in store for us. We make so much of the coaching, the new head coach, the new quarterback. I want to see what these coordinators bring to the table.
Hey, that'll do it for the pregame show. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy NDSU and Butler.
8 months